If you look up poison chalice in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of Rishi Sunak's face. Rishi Sunak was the 6th UK Prime Minister in 8 years. He inherited chaos, he inherited distrust, he inherited corruption, he inherited a mess. And pretty much any time that he called an election as Prime Minister, he was going to lose it. He calls an election in July 2024. He does lose it and loses it badly. Lowest number of seats ever for the Conservative Party. Lowest vote share ever for the Conservative Party. And after staying up all night and watching these dismal results trickling in, he then has to leave Downing Street for the last time and deliver his concession speech. How would you be feeling in that situation? What would you say? What would you do? Let's break down and analyse a little bit of what Rishi Sunak ultimately chose to do in his concession speech and outline possibly some areas where he could have tweaked and improved it, as well as reflecting on those areas where he maybe hit the nail on the head. Now, as always, when I'm doing these analysis videos, this is for educational, informational purposes only. I do not claim the right to the footage of this speech. I'd like to thank The Guardian News on this occasion for providing this footage. With all of those legal disclaimers out of the way, let's now break down what Rishi Sunak did well in his speech and some ideas, if he ever became Prime Minister again and ever lost an election again, what he should maybe do next time.
Good morning.
You'll know if you've watched my previous analysis videos, or even if you've just seen general videos of mine on YouTube, I often talk about not rushing into your speech when you come up on stage. Find your place on stage, anchor yourself, draw the audience's attention, and then begin. What we see here is something a little bit different, because Sunak can't stride up to the podium confidently and look like he's hesitant, but at the same time can't stride up and then start gushing forth, looking a little bit too kind of anxious and lacking that composure. So it's this fine balance between not looking hesitant and looking like your emotions are overcoming you, and being a blubbering mess and looking like your emotions are overcoming you. So we find this middle ground of coming up to the podium, checking the notes are there, and then starting to speak with that good morning. So getting things rocking and rolling, but after the good morning, a pause. Getting that middle ground between launching into the speech smoothly, but not flooding into the speech. So this is a technique that you won't often see, and to be honest, it's not something I would often recommend, because the type of balance that you're trying to get in this situation isn't like most of the speeches that you're trying to get. You're offering a concession and a resignation. Normally you aren't doing a speech that's in that pattern. But what we can see here is that for every rule, there are exceptions. And we see the exception of the rule being employed here.
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this...
I am sorry. Simple words, not often heard. When you hear someone delivering a public apology, quite often that apology gets skirted. There's euphemisms like, I apologize, or I'm sorry that you feel that way. And that can really diminish the power that an apology has. There's something very refreshing and bold about receiving a direct apology with no justifications, no reasoning, no excuses. And whilst it certainly doesn't help take away the original pain that's been caused by whatever the person is apologizing for, there is a boldness, a directness, and a freshness to just saying, I am sorry, in the way that Sunak does in this particular part of the speech. So already, we're just rolling into the speech. We're seeing a composed start, balancing, getting into things, not being too hesitant, but not flooding into things too much. And one of the first things out of his mouth is an apology. So starting off humble and moving into the next part.
I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss.
So after that apology, we then get taking responsibility. And Sunak takes the responsibility. Now here, it would be very easy as the 6th Prime Minister in 8 years to go, hey look, this is all on me. I came into this, I inherited the poison chalice. It's all the others. And I was just trying to reverse what they've done. And I wasn't able to reverse it. It would be such an easy line to take. But he doesn't. He takes it all on himself. So has the apology for not hitting standards, and then takes responsibility that he didn't hit those standards. So we're seeing this very gracious, humble beginning in this speech.
It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons.
We hear the alliteration coming through there. Colleagues, contributed, communities, country, C. So whenever we have alliteration, because we hear that repetition of sound, it draws our attention to the phrase that's been repeated. And Sunak is drawing attention to the contribution of others. So putting the attention on the spotlight on them and their work and their efforts. And just as a small by the by as well, he is the leader of the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom. So using alliteration that also has the word C, it's an unconscious link in with this is what our party is all about. It's all about the contribution to the community, to the country. So drawing attention and putting the spotlight on the efforts of others.
14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds, but also that it takes up its crucial role in opposition professionally and effectively.
Takes up role in opposition professionally and effectively. Not with resentment, not holding a grudge, not trying to get back in and win things over. Professionally and effectively. There's an element of messaging in here. There's a little bit of a call to action, a vision for this is how we need to go forward. If we step into opposition now and we get into that place of bitterness, it's going to make it harder for the job of rebuilding from this loss. All leaders must provide messaging. And even as he is literally leaving leadership, well, that was a nice bit of accidental alliteration. As he's literally leaving leadership, Sunak is actually still providing that leadership, that messaging and that vision for the future right until the very end. That's what leaders do, even when they know they're on their way out.
I'm proud of those achievements. I believe this country is safer, stronger, and more secure than it was 20 months ago.
Safer, stronger, more secure. Alliteration, rule of 3, you recognize the techniques. What Sunak's also got to do with his speech, yes, there's the graciousness, there's humility, there's the apologizing, there's the accepting responsibility for the mistakes, the spotlighting on others. But as leader, he also kind of needs to sum up like what he has done as leader, what he's overseen during his time of leadership, and finding a tagline that amalgamates, summarizes all of that. Because he can't spend a whole speech banging on about his achievements when he's been voted out. Because if the achievements are so good, then why are you being voted out? But equally, can't ignore the achievements either. If you just come up there and be 100% humble and 100% gracious of yeah, everything went wrong and it's all my fault, then it doesn't look very dignified either. So again, it's getting that balance between having that humility and that graciousness in defeat, but also highlighting, you know, this is some of the change that happened. This is some of the work and effort that we did. And just that little bit of a tagline, using alliteration and using the rule of 3, it just creates a little bit of a concept and an idea there in and around the other stuff that he's saying.
Whilst he has been my political opponent, Sir Keir Starmer will shortly become our Prime Minister. In this job, his successors will be all our successors, and I wish him...
That's a nice line. His successors will be our successors. It's easy in leadership to think that leadership is just about one person, because you have the person who's the figurehead, whether that's the Prime Minister, whether that's the CEO, whether that is the guru, the saints, like whoever it is. But leadership is a group thing. Yes, you have the figurehead at the start, but then you also have, well, all of the people that they're actually leading. And true leadership trickles down. And what Sunak is saying here is just a reminder of getting away from the personality of leadership in politics and going, okay, well, let's actually look at the collective outcomes and result of that. So it's a really nice line coming in there, and just a little bit of a reminder and a seed for getting people to think about how they're involved in leadership rather than just looking at the top of the ladder, the top of the pyramid. That's what leadership is. If you have aspirations to be a leader and using your speaking skills to get you there, then I'd love to be able to help you using my coaching services. Just like what you're seeing on this video, we'll look at your speaking and highlight what's working for you, look at the key skills to make your stories and your messages stand out, and as we're about to do in a moment, also looking at where are your weak spots or blind spots, what those are areas that you can improve and get better in going forward. To find out more about how my coaching works, if you drop me a message on LinkedIn, I've put my link in the description below, a link to the LinkedIn. If you send me a direct message on LinkedIn, I'll outline the different ways I can help you through the coaching, how the programs work, and what would be right for you and your speaking journey. And who knows, if Sunak could come to me for coaching, maybe he'd still be Prime Minister. All right, speaking of the man himself, let's look at a couple of areas that he could have tweaked and sharpened in this speech.
Will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service.
I thank them. I would like this part to just be a little bit more personal with a thank you. Thank them is a little bit detached. And I know for us as the audience, the general public watching this, we're not necessarily seeing those people he's talking about, but those people who he's talking about are watching this. And I think for this moment, to make that emotion a little bit more powerful, I would like to see it being made a little bit more personal. And it's amazing how just that little change in the pronoun can make things more intimate and make things more personal. And when we hear thank you, it doesn't exclude the rest of us from the speech. We don't go, oh, well, this speech isn't relevant to me anymore. We go, oh no, isn't that lovely? Acknowledging all of those people who've made that hard work, and we feel the residual effects of that gratitude. Just a one-word change here, I think, would make this moment more powerful.
The team at Chequers, my staff, CCHQ, but most of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to my wife Akshata and our beautiful daughters. I would
like to see a little bit of a smile there, talking about family, wife, daughters, spouse, children. We often remark nowadays that politicians, they don't have that empathy, they don't have that warmth to them. And when we get to the subject of family, I think it'd be nice to see some of that warmth come through, see some of the humanity, see the person behind the title. And I think that was an opportunity to do that. Family is one of those unifiers. We have different opinions on politics and economics and policy, but we all know that family is important, and family is often what really matters at the end of the day. Certain relationships are what really matter. And just similar to that point on the gratitude, I would just like to see it being a little bit more personal and a little bit more direct, and just a nice little smile and a little bit of warmth in that moment, just to bring the humanity to this. But overall, those are just two tiny tweaks and sharpens that we've got here. I thought this was actually a very composed speech. It certainly exceeded my expectations from seeing other speeches before. It wasn't what I was expecting, and it's funny. You don't want your best speech to be your farewell speech, your resignation speech. And I wonder if just some of those other aspects that we saw in this speech coming through, some of that genuineness, some of that honesty, some of that directness, isn't that what we all ask for from politicians nowadays? It's okay to be human. We just want people to be honest about being human. And maybe some of those skills and some of those strategies and some of those approaches used in this speech were coming through elsewhere. Maybe Sunak couldn't have lost his job. Now, will we see that from the incoming Prime Minister, Keir Starmer? That's what we're going to look at in my next analysis video. And what you want to do as a speaker is learn, well, what is the difference between the speakers whose messages connect and the speakers whose messages don't? Now, Sunak, in his time as Prime Minister, for whatever reason, his messages have not connected. He was voted out, so clearly those messages didn't work. Keir Starmer has come in, and something about his messaging has worked. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been voted in. So what's the difference? And learning that difference is vital to your career as a speaker. You can have all of the best ideas, all of the best vision, all of the best messages in the world, but if you don't learn how to communicate them, you might as well not have them. Learn how to communicate your message and you'll be able to have the impact that you're capable of in the world.